The NBA has been described as player-driven for as long as I can remember. It is maybe the defining characteristic of the league. If you're good at the sport, you are almost guaranteed a close to max level contract. And if you are truly great at it, you are guaranteed a Supermax, and on top of that, can act virtually any way you want. This is because a great NBA player can essentially win you games by himself, and this is something unique to the sport of basketball. There is no other sport where a single player can be asked to carry their team night in and night out on both offense and defense. This means there's no other sport where the best players can have as high a level of impact. Impact means leverage, and leverage means negotiating power. NBA players as a whole, however, did not realize how much power they held until 2011. Superstars have been making big money moves since Wilt was tearing down hoops on and off the court for sure, but in my opinion, LeBron's public announcement of
not two.
LeBron, tell us about that.
Not two, not three, not four, not five.
Was the first time NBA stars across the country were given the blueprint. Oh, we have this much power? Okay then, let's use it. Since then, the best of the best in the league have been getting more and more bold, more and more brazen with flaunting this power. This flaunting manifested itself in numerous ways, whether that's publicly demanding a trade with multiple years left on your contract, publicly demanding a trade destination without a no-trade clause, ousting a coach, hell, even assuming the role of pseudo-GM. To be quite frank with you, as each year passes, the uses of this player empowerment has become more and more ridiculous. But I do see an end in sight. One of the biggest talking points of this season to me has been the fact that I think NBA superstars have overplayed their hands and have underperformed with respect to the standards being asked of them. And I believe this, in combination with the new CBA, will lead to owners flexing their muscles a little more and taking some of the power away from the best players in the league. This will lead to an epidemic of young star players getting traded before their first contract and the unofficial abolition of the Supermax. There are a lot of reasons I believe this, but all my points can be distilled down into two monumental events that have happened in the past few weeks: Joel Embiid's career-altering injury and the Dallas Mavericks trading of one Luka Doncic. Let's start with that first one. If you have been living under a rock for the past 4 or 5 years, you may be shocked to hear that the pinnacle of health, Joel Embiid, has suffered yet another season-ending injury and will be subject to off-season surgery once again. This surgery is a bit different than his other ones though, substantially more serious in my opinion. This procedure would be to correct the meniscus injury he was dealing with at the end of last season that allegedly did not heal properly. The proposed solutions to fix this injury for good are a complete meniscus replacement, low-dose radiation, or something known as an osteotomy that would require doctors to break a bone in the hip to realign the joint and alleviate the pressure in his knee. The insanity of these proposed solutions don't just put Joel's playing career into question, but his general lifestyle after basketball. Will this man be able to walk normally at the age of 40 or 50? I hope to God he can. But when reporters and medical professionals are calling a procedure you have to undergo, and I quote, radical, then the odds aren't looking too good for you. Prayers up to Embiid and his family, but let's get back to the conversation at hand. Why does this unfortunate injury signal the end of superstar players' leverage in the NBA? Well, that's because we saw this coming. From the moment Joel reached the league, there were significant questions about his durability. And then he missed the first 2 seasons of his career. I remember those 2 years, man. Embiid was a lost cause. People were already slating him as one of the biggest busts ever, a new age Greg Oden. And then that first season, he finally had some semblance of health. He and his remarkably polished game and unpolished personality took the league by storm. He overnight turned the Sixers from a dumpster fire to the people's champs. So much so that the Sixers decided to ignore the injury red flags. Little nicks here and there always hobbled Embiid come playoff time, but every time they came around, Philly just chalked it up to bad luck. Hey, he's more injury prone than most, but talents like Embiid don't come around often. We will get at least one postseason with a fully healthy Embiid over the course of his career, and whenever that time comes, we need to be ready to capitalize on it. Well, now here we are, about a half decade or so later, at a point where I truly believe Embiid's injuries have ended the perennial all-star segment of his career, and all the Sixers have to show for that is a pretty fun Eastern Conference semifinals berth from like 7 years ago, an MVP that 90% of the NBA considers fraudulent, and a whopping $192 million albatross of a contract on their books for the next 3 seasons. That's right, Embiid's contract following this career-altering surgery is 3 years, $64 million per year. God bless his agent. The Sixers are in, to be quite frank, a terrible position right now. And I believe that their situation right now is going to serve as a warning sign to the rest of the NBA. On the side of the arena in big red flashing lights, do not trust the health of your injury-prone star players. If you do, you will end up like us. I have felt this for a while now. I made a video several months ago discussing this, link in the description, card in the upper right-hand corner if you want to check it out. But NBA teams, whether out of hope or loyalty, have way too much faith in young, injury-prone star players. It's like they believe their young prospects are just in their missing games phase and will eventually grow out of it. But that's counterintuitive. You should be missing the least amount of games in your career when you are a young prospect. This is when your body should be the most durable. So if you can't stay on the court as a younger, more virile player, how can you be expected to be healthy when you are older with more miles on your body? In my opinion, you can't be. We have no evidence of anyone being able to. If anything, we have evidence that points to the contrary. And I think this case with Joel Embiid will be the final case, the final warning. From now on, if a team has a young injury-prone prospect, the question will no longer be how can we get him healthy? The question will be how much can we get for him if we trade him now? And part of the reason this question has been made possible is the second monumental event that happened this season, the Luka Doncic trade. Now, there are a lot of things to be talked about with the Luka trade. 1 million videos have rightfully been made about it, and as time goes on and the results of the trade continue to be revealed, I'm sure 1 million more videos will be made about it because there are so many angles that the trade can be talked about from. But one of the aspects that isn't spoken about nearly enough is how this trade opens the door to literally any young star player getting traded. I mean, you heard Ant after the trade happened.
I saw some on YouTube that said he just bought a crib and everything in Dallas, so that sucks, man. That sucks.
Does it inform like
Everybody.
you at 23?
Everybody get informed. Yeah.
I was gonna say like.
I'm scared.
How you see the league?
I'm scared.
And he's right. Luka should have been the last player in the league to get traded. 26-year-old offensive savant, in my opinion, one of the best offensive players ever. Playoff proven, and the biggest flaw is he's out of shape and likes to crack open a cold one every now and then. Really? He had Maverick for life tattooed across his forehead. And even he got traded. Originally, not paying your young star player was considered against the grain. Hey, you scouted this guy, you invested in this guy, and he became an all-star in your jersey. You just have to keep him. Brothers like this don't come around often. But now, when someone like the Grizzlies see what the Mavs did, even if it doesn't work out, they are looking at the Mavs giving up on Luka freaking Doncic, and they are thinking to themselves, forget giving Triple J the max. I don't even know if we should have given Ja the max. I mean, he's worse and more injury prone than Luka. We at least have to consider trading him. Teams like the Hornets are looking at LaMelo Ball and his health issues a little bit sideways. As good as Cade has been this year, if he has another serious injury in the back half of his season, I'm sure the Pistons will start re-examining their commitment to him. And then there are teams like the Orlando Magic whose young players don't really have an injury concern, but they're probably going to start wondering if they are truly good enough to hitch their wagon to for the next decade. And I would just like to make it clear, these are not my thoughts. I am not saying Cade Cunningham should be traded. I am not saying Paolo Banchero should be traded. I am simply saying the process is failure, and the Luka Doncic trade especially has made it more likely for teams to question these types of players. The Luka Doncic trade gave teams everywhere an excuse to be more skeptical about their young stars. And now, in my opinion, teams everywhere are going to think twice about giving their young star players the Supermax unless they are virtually perfect on and off the court. As I alluded to in the intro, this new skepticism is compounded by the new CBA's second apron. Look through the top teams in the league and tell me what 85% of them have in common. The Thunder, Cavs, Knicks, Celtics, Grizzlies, Rockets, Pacers. What do all those teams have in common? Well, they're all pretty deep. The meta in the NBA has shifted from a big three with 3 to 4 solid role players to large ensemble casts with a lot of really good role players. Maybe maybe one superstar, but even that's not necessarily necessary. And NBA teams are starting to realize this. Hell, I hated the Kings' move of trading away De'Aaron Fox, despised it, and I still think asset-wise they got fleeced. But from a purely basketball perspective, by switching from a more star-focused play style to a more ensemble cast with 3 or 4 players you're worried about dropping 25, the Kings have actually been on a pretty nice run since the trade happened. To me, the reason this season seems to be the end of player empowerment is because teams as a whole are realizing that having a supermax or even max level player does not automatically punch your ticket to the playoffs anymore. If anything, this season proves that under this new CBA, that may be more of a hindrance than ever before. In this modern league, it appears that for the first time ever, 3 really solid role players are better than 1 solid superstar. And NBA front offices are starting to realize that and adjusting accordingly. So from here on out, I believe we're going to see 2 things. I spoke about these in the intro, but I want to go over them again just so it's very clear to you the tangible ways I think player empowerment will be harmed. First, I think we are going to see even more stars, especially the injury-prone ones, getting traded before they get a chance to get a supermax and while their value is still pretty high. We just saw that with Luka, and we are already hearing rumors from reputable sources about Zion, LaMelo, and Ja. Secondly, I think we see a virtual abandonment of the supermax. As I said before, we have seen a new meta in the NBA of large ensemble casts being really good. You can't have a large ensemble cast under this new CBA if you're going to pay a decent star player a supermax. The only players that I believe will be bestowed with this monetary honor are the young players that have no blemishes on the court and no serious ones off of it. Off the top of my head, the only young stars that fit this criteria is Wemby and Ant, and I'm not even 100% sure about Ant if I'm being completely honest. Instead, I think teams are just going to offer max contracts and bank on virtually no team having cap space to sign max players outright and getting something back for their pissed off stars in a sign and trade if they decide to leave. With that, thank you ladies and gentlemen for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking and subscribing. It goes a long way and helps us out in the YouTube algorithm. Comment down below what you think about this video, if you love it, if you hate it, or if you disagree with any specific points. Share the video with a friend, and as always, stay sweaty, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.